Uganda's mineral sector. The conference will bring together expert speakers from Uganda, Tanzania, Zimbabwe, Zambia, South Africa, Canada, Chile, Finland, and many more to explore, among others, how Uganda's mineral sector can be optimized to meaningfully contribute to economic transformation. The chief guest at the conference will be Honorable Ruth Nankabirwa, the Minister of Energy and Mineral Development. The conference will be live on NTV and Uganda Chamber of Mines and Petroleum YouTube channel on 5th and 6th October 2021 from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. on both days. Sponsored by Absa Bank Uganda, Renzori Rare Metals, NCBA Bank Uganda, UIA, Uganda Insurers Association, AGR, African Gold Refinery, Stanbic Bank, Minet, Toyota Uganda, Hima Cement, Uganda Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative, Sumter Mines, and Mash Uganda.
Whoever you're doing it for, we'll help you get it done. Simply. That's Africanacity. That's ABSA.
Good morning, our viewers. Today, day 2 of the 10th Annual Mineral Wealth Conference, brought to you yet again by the Uganda Chamber of Mines and Petroleum. We welcome you again today. Greetings to our partners led by the Minister who are in the Dubai Expo 2020, also trying to promote our mineral sector. We thank you very much for also opening the session yesterday, Honorable Minister, and we pledge that as the Uganda Chamber of Mines and Petroleum, we will be able to develop, promote, and protect the mineral sector in the country. Just a recap from yesterday. We gave the journey and why Uganda Chamber of Mines and Petroleum does what it does every year. This is the 10th time we are spotlighting the mineral sector in Uganda. The reason is largely because we believe that the mineral sector is fundamental in shaping the socio-economic development of the country. We believe that private sector working alongside the public sector should be able to harness and be able to maximize the beneficial profits, monetization of the mineral sector in Uganda. Yesterday we covered a couple of areas. We covered the journey of the UCMP from where it was before as the Uganda Chamber of Mines, and then alongside around 10, 11 years ago, it became the Uganda Chamber of Mines and Petroleum. Currently, it has about 250 members registered that are working along the mineral value chain and the petroleum mineral value chain. And we believe that with all the partners we have on board, we are able to shape the direction of the extractives industry in the country. Why do we do what we do as the Uganda Chamber of Mines and Petroleum? We do what we do because we believe that the minerals are things that can be able to benefit Ugandans, are things that can be able to benefit our members, private sector, investors, and the country at large. Yesterday we covered largely the battery minerals and the rare earth elements that are largely used in the technology sector, electronics. The battery minerals because of the development of electronic vehicles. As we said yesterday, 2021 half year, they are sold about 2.6 million electric vehicles, both battery electric vehicles, but also plug-in hybrid electric vehicles. And some of the elements that make up these battery electric vehicles, we have a couple of anomalies in Uganda, and we believe that the country has to be intent and strategic in making sure that they can be able to harvest some of these minerals in a beneficial manner to benefit the country. We also covered legal and regulatory frameworks, and some of the things that came through strongly was about what do we need to do to attract investment by making the correct mineral policies, the correct mineral laws, but also using taxation as something that can attract investment, but also to protect businesses once they have entered the country and they have entered the sector and they are quick to operate. Today, we shall be covering industrialization. How do the minerals actually support industrialization of the country? We'll also be able to cover linkages. What other sectors can be able to plug into the mineral sector to grow the economy? And then we shall also tackle one of the other things that is a sticking thorn in the foot of the mineral sector, which is artisanal mining. A couple of people have different views about it, and we believe by the end of today, we shall have learned more and devised means of making sure that we can be able to formalize artisanal mining, but also make it profitable for the people who are involved in it. Alongside me today, I'll be moderating with Madame Naomi Nanguko, who is my co-moderator for the day, and I'll ask her to step up to give us first a safety moment before we go into our first session. Good morning once again. My name is Ashaba Agre, and I'm the Secretary General of the Uganda Chamber of Mines and Petroleum.
Thank you, Agre. Good morning, our viewers. Thank you for tuning in today to our second day of the Tennis Mineral Wealth Conference that is sponsored and organized by Uganda Chamber of Mines and Petroleum, together with Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development. We want to thank our partners that have sponsored and made this very possible. Our safety moment this morning is going to feature a mine site. We are talking about the mineral sector. I want us to envision ourselves at a mine site. When you arrive at a mine site, there are many things that you need to consider, but the most key is the organization of the mine site. You must plan your site very, very well. It has to be very organized. Just like your home, you should be knowing what is where. Where is the bathroom? Where is the sitting room? Where is the dining room? Where is the kitchen? So at the same time, that is going to help us not to have accidents. So at a mine site, we expect a mine site to be well organized. We know where the waste management site is. We know where the shelters are. We know where the deep excavations are, and also the offices. So this will help us to minimize several accidents on site. The other thing that we need to think about as well is hazard assessments and identification. This is very key because you need to know the enemy that is around you. You need to know what will cause you danger or what has the potential to inflict any pain or any kind of danger to your health or body. So it's very important for you to do this assessment and identify some of these things on your site. Same thing at home. So I'm going to relate all these things with our surrounding because I know most of our viewers, you could be in your homes. So it's also very important for you to know what may be potentially dangerous to you, especially when we have the children in the homes. You know where, if there is a fire, what should you do? What should you put in place? So when you know the hazards that are around your site, you'll be able to know the measures to curb them or to minimize injuries around your mine site. The other thing that is very critical as well at the mine site is wearing your personal protective gear. This is very important because at a mine site, so many operations are taking place. We have the blasting going on that is going to cause dust going up in the air. We have the noise that is really very severe from the running machines and vehicles that are really loaded. We have as well the equipments that we are handling. You know, some of them you'll have to wear gloves, hand gloves, because one, they could be hot elements. Two, they could be hazardous in terms of chemicals. They could cause injury to your body. So this morning, I really want us to focus on that. Each time you visit a mine or anytime you get an opportunity to visit a mine, please have this in mind. The last thing that I would want to share with us this morning is about the environment that we live in, yeah? The environment that you're in is also a potential hazard to you. you need to know who is around me. So wherever you're moving at a mine site, you need to have a high visibility cloth on you. I know many times we see this at construction sites, but at a mine site, it's really very important because we need to know who is working with us, who is working where, who is underground, you know, when we are moving around the site, not to leave anyone behind. So this can help in evacuations in case of any injury, in case of any accident. This will really help us so much. So the next time you go at a mine site, remember to wear a high visibility cloth. Thank you so much for listening in. Join me to welcome Agri back to take us through the next session.
Thank you, Naomi. She's actually a mining specialist, so when she speaks, we need to listen. Allow me to dive right into the first session, which is the minerals as a means of industrialization. And with me, I'd like to bring in Mr. Hermano Giovanni, who is a value chain banking head of Absa Bank Mozambique, because they have done some of these big deals, to speak to us about the financing of the mineral sector and using Mozambique as a benchmark. He will be joining us from Zoom, via Zoom from Mozambique. I hope, Mr. Hermano, are you with us?
Yes, sir. Good morning.
Good morning, Hermano. You have about 15 minutes for us to drink from your well of wisdom. The floor is yours.
Sure. Thank you very much. I'd like to once again thank the Uganda Chamber of Mines and Petroleum for having me, and also the wonderful privilege of having an institution to partner as a sponsor for the event. So as highlighted, my name is Hermano Giovanni, and I'm the head of oil and gas and value chain banking here in Absa Bank Mozambique. And I'd like to just share a little bit of the Mozambican story of industrialization and how the mineral resources sector drove that, and also just discuss it a bit from more of a financing perspective. So before I get into that, I'd just like to briefly share a little bit about who we are as a bank. A lot of you might be familiar, as we are present in Uganda. So, you know, apart from Uganda, we are present in 11 different markets across Africa, including South Africa and obviously Mozambique. 2 years ago, we're fortunate to have entered into a partnership with SocGen as well, as SocGen does have a very strong presence in Western Africa and happen to be present in Mozambique as well. And that enables us to create a lot of synergies to cover a lot of strategic transactions that do cover the majority of Africa. So as can be seen, our bank is listed in the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. We do have a massive market cap of over $9.5 billion equivalent. That's above 130 billion rands. We also do have rep offices in non-presence markets such as Namibia, Nigeria. We also have a rep office in the UK as well as the US in New York. And those help us, you know, establish and continue to, you know, develop the partnership and relationship that we do have with our international clients. So as I touch on the mineral resources sector in Mozambique, I'd just like to briefly emphasize the significance of this sector to our economy. So Mozambique as an economy is a net importing economy. So obviously we import more than we export, we consume more than we produce as an economy. And some of the key minerals that we do have include coal, rubies, heavy sands, graphite, and aluminum. And there are also reports that do prove that we do have, you know, deposits of the likes of gold and lithium, which are other minerals that do have immense potential. And those are deposits with a lot of potential for further development. So in terms of the export contribution to our economy, the mineral resources in the year 2019 did contribute to over 60% of the total export receipts in our economy. And obviously second to that is the agricultural sector, with key crops being the likes of tobacco, sugar, and cotton. So traditionally our biggest exporting commodity is coal. And to those who are environmentally conscious, that could raise a bit of eyebrows. Because on one hand, we have seen that, you know, COVID in the year 2020 has impacted the demand for coal, and that's impacted the production and export volumes. And, you know, the trend does show that that is likely to come back up. We also do have massive exports of aluminum. And this fortunately the demand hasn't been hit as hard as coal, despite COVID, as demand driving economies such as India and China continue to have very high demand for this commodity. And obviously, as we can see here from the data, another commodity that has been hit hard by COVID is rubies. And obviously, as we delve into the following slide, we'll understand that in a bit more depth. So look at the slide. This slide here, this kind of gives us a picture of how the value chain works. When I talk about the value chain, I'm focusing more on the buyer side. So obviously this gives us a picture of which markets are the demand drivers and which industries are the demand drivers for the respective commodities. And apart from that, I also like to share a bit about the risk appetite that we do have. We do have a financial institution, which is also to an extent the representation of the kind of appetite that the banking sector does have to finance operations for the respective commodities. So beginning with coal, with aluminum rather, the key off-taking industries include India, China, and Singapore. So the main operation of aluminum here in Mozambique is South 32. Which is and the local subsidiary is Mozal. So we as an institution have been fortunate to be involved during the project finance for this particular operation during the time of investment. And the general view for aluminum is, at the moment, the little challenge that's faced globally is that demand seems to be outstripping supply. Demand seems to be outgrowing supply, and obviously the biggest demand driver is obviously the Chinese market. So that does have quite a positive implication on the price of the commodity. However, in Mozambique, the operation did make quite positive progress in terms of industrialization on the supply side. So the aluminum operations have been making immense efforts to localize and increase the procurement spend that goes to local suppliers. Next, we have rubies. The rubies, the key operation is by Gemstones Montefiore Ruby Mining, which is in the Cabo Delgado province. And the key off-taking market for this is Singapore. And look at the value chain in a nutshell. The rubies are exported to India, where they get polished, and in turn, they're exported and shipped to the likes of Singapore, and that's where the auctions do take place. And obviously, being a mineral that eventually does produce some luxury products, the demand for this has been hitting quite hard. Another factor that did hit the production and export volumes in 2020 was the fact that the war shutdowns that did happen and a lot of COVID restrictions in the Indian market. And obviously the whole polishing activity was severely affected. So we did see a year-on-year decline of 90% in 2020 compared to 2019. And obviously that's been recovering quite nicely in 2021, according to our central bank's data. The third strategic commodity is heavy sands. So we are rich in minerals such as titanium and zirconium, and this is fortunately another commodity that hasn't really been hit by COVID. And some of the key regions to which we supply include Asia, Europe, and the North American market. So the local operations, some of the key operations include, the Irish Kenmare, which is based in Nampula project province in Moma, as well as the heavy sands operations in Zambezia province, which is owned by China's Africa Great Wall. The other commodity that we're very rich in, and it's arguably one of the key, on the export side, one of the key drivers of foreign currency, because it does really bring massive export proceeds to our economy. It does also make massive fiscal contributions. It's obviously coal. So obviously we are quite cautious of the environmental concerns around this. Between the time that the investment did happen for the biggest coal project here in Mozambique, which is owned by Brazil's Vale in 2009, and now, there has been quite an evolution in energy policies in different economies, and consequently, the lending policies have also, changed quite a bit on the side of the financial institutions. So India and China does happen to be one of the key strategic off-taking markets for the coal commodity. And apart from Brazil's Vale, which has a massive operation in Moatize in that province. Another massive operation that we do have is the Mega Mine, which is owned by ICVL. Historically, it was owned by Riversdale, which did sell this off to Australia's Rio Tinto in 2011 for a price of $3.7 billion. And we did see the operation depreciate quite massively in 2014 when they sold the operation to ICVL. And one of the key factors too that was the fact that the production costs for the coal were way higher than what was predicted and anticipated due to the logistical complexities, which causes massive depreciation. So our view as a financial institution, and I believe that other financial institutions might have a similar view. On one hand, we do generally have a greater appetite for brownfield operations and coal mining operations. When I say brownfield, I mean operations that do have a track record and have been happening for some time, that do have an operational and financial track record. However, when it comes to greenfield coal operations, that's where we do have a bit more reservation, and our criteria that tend to get a bit tougher. So, for example, one of our criteria for greenfield operations in order to finance that is we kind of look at the final purpose of the coal. Where will the coal be going? For example, is the coal being predominantly used for coal to power? Is the coal being supplied to an economy that is impractical to shift drastically from being coal-based to cleaner? So an example of such an economy could be India, which is a coal-based economy. And on the other hand, the Gini coefficient is pretty high. There are a lot of people that live below the poverty line. So for an economy like that to drastically change and aggressively change the energy mix from predominantly coal-based to renewables could be quite expensive for the population and economically not sustainable, and it could even potentially raise energy security issue. And obviously, another resource that we're quite rich on is natural gas. Mozambique has made headlines over the last decade due to over 100 trillion cubic feet of gas in the Cabo Delgado province. And despite the security issues that are occurring at the moment that are being resolved, and there is quite good progress, we also do have other interesting blocks in Sofala, which are operated by an Indonesian company. And we also do have a massive operation further south in Yamban province, which is owned by a South African operator. And obviously, other minerals that we do have, the next one that's potentially that has the most potential includes graphite. So there are some graphite operations in provinces such as Cabo Delgado, and I believe that in years to come, our appetite could improve as the strength of the off-takers could improve on that. We also do have minerals such as lithium that haven't yet entered into production as yet in Zambezia province, and obviously around that, the environmental concerns that do happen around that do surround the lithium sector could kind of influence our lending policy. And obviously, with emerging issues such as electronic vehicles, that could be a potential driver for minerals such as graphite and lithium, as well as cobalt in other economies. So pretty much our key areas of support are pretty much threefold as an institution for the mineral resources. On one hand, we as an institution do have immense expertise in our investment banking division. We do have expertise in project finance for natural resource projects for different minerals. We do also have project finance for other projects in other sectors such as oil and gas, as well as infrastructure projects. And I did kind of give a view on the kind of appetite we have for commodities from that perspective. Secondly, I did also highlight that Mozambique as an economy has made more progress on the supply side and continues to make more progress on the supply side in terms of industrialization. So we as an institution have supported in terms of capacitation programs. So we do have strategic partnerships with institutions to capacitate local SMEs and local enterprises in order to qualify them and make them competent enough to compete internationally for contracts with big operations in the mineral sectors, which could really bring growth and drive to our economies. And we've seen that a lot of the mineral operations do have local content divisions, and they have made massive investments to localize purchases of goods and services, which does stimulate industrialization. And thirdly, our key support is obviously, funding programs that we do have. We are the leading value chain back in Mozambique, and we do have funding programs that do help local enterprises with access to finance whenever they present contracts with key anchor operators of different minerals. So I do admit that one of the challenges in our economy in terms of industrialization is more further upstream, rather further downstream in the operations. Because obviously, I think the next step that we need to take that I believe Uganda could focus on is the transformation process, which could bring more economic benefit as well as create employment for the economy. So thank you very much. That's in a nutshell our view in terms of our progress in Mozambique.
Thank you very much, Hamano, and being exactly on time, like the detail that bankers have. It's very enriching on the financing aspect. We welcome that. We'll pick a few lessons. Allow me to now bring in one very, very experienced gentleman, Chizera Morelli. I hope that is the correct pronunciation. Who is the technical director of Benzu Minerals and the founder, and he has been involved in several world-class projects, such as the Rainbow Rare Earth Element project that is producing in Africa, Rubicon, Helicon, and the first lithium producing mine in Namibia, a series of gold, iron, cobalt, rare earth elements in countries like Tanzania, Ethiopia, and currently he's also involved in the Mukutu Rare Earth Elements project in Uganda, which is at the feasibility study stage. It was discussed yesterday, and is in a joint venture between the Ugandan Rwenzori Rare Metals Limited and Australian Ionic Rare Earths Limited, which is a company listed on the Australian Stock Exchange. Mr. Morelli, are you with us?
Yes, good morning.
Good morning. Hi, how are you?
I'm fine, and you?
Based on this rich CV of yours and the experience that you have, I just wanted to put a couple of questions to you. And first, I would like to ask, in your view, we are speaking about beneficiation, we are speaking about all these things, but what is the balance of beneficiation? Because as you know, across the African landscape, different African countries are revising their mining acts or mining codes to put strategic minerals, to put beneficiation, to put national content, to put state participation, and yet probably different minerals have different beneficiation stages. Others may call on different value chains, different producers, different companies to be able to move them along the different value chains. Based on your experience, what is it, where can the balance be between the state, private sector, and investors?
Thank you very much, and I'm very happy to be participating in this conference. I listened to the conference yesterday, and the theme of beneficiation came up several times. And as you said, everywhere where I work in Africa, the governments are now pushing further and further this theme, this obligation. And I'm happy to discuss it because I often think that there is a bit of a misconception about mining and beneficiation. In terms of who should be doing beneficiation, the governments are very quick to say to miners, you need to add value before you sell your product. But it's not as simple as that. And the governments are good at making policy statements and at giving a vision. Where the things very often fall apart is on how to achieve that. And that's where the mining guys very often have to play a role. I give you an example. Yesterday, I think it was John who said about the gold mining in Uganda. Why don't we use the gold to make jewelry and to make watches. And he's absolutely right, but a mining company can mine gold and refine it to 99% purity, then it has to sell it. You cannot ask a mining company to then become a watchmaker. It's unfair, and the only way to add value to gold is to make jewelry. But don't ask a mining company to do that, because we are miners. We extract ore out of the ground, and it's the same with many of the commodities that we are exploring and mining. we can refine the product and make it more valuable. And in fact, it is in our interest as miners to make it more valuable, to sell it for a higher price, than just raw ore. And but it's important to then understand that when we talk about beneficiation, it's not one solution that will fit all the commodities. Every metal, every mineral will have its different way of being beneficiated, and very often it's not, as I say, the question of the mining company who has to do that. It's the next the guys who buys the ore that needs to beneficiate. We produce something at the mine, we sell it, and it's the next level of the economy that needs to come in. So, for example, coming back to the gold example, I would be, if I was a gold miner and producer in Uganda, I would be very happy to sell it to an Ugandan company who makes watches. Absolutely no problem. In fact, it would be a pleasure. But are there Ugandan watchmakers, that I can sell the gold to? At this stage, I don't know of any, so I'll have to sell it to Swiss or to European or to Chinese. I come back to another example, the famous iron ore, and I want to give very practical examples because I think that's what's useful here. The iron ore in Uganda, I've been attending your conference for the last 5-6 years, and I think that iron ore theme, 1 billion ton of high grade, comes up every time. I think Richard Kaijuka talks about it all the time. And 10 years after, where is the mine? You haven't moved anything yet. And you have to realize that the world produces about 3 billion ton of iron ore every year. That's what is mined. 3 billion ton of iron ore is mined every year. And all that mine goes into steel making, virtually, the ingredients to make buildings and cars and everything, really everything. Now, if Uganda wants to beneficiate their iron ore before selling it, they will have to create a steel making industry. Again, why ask a mining company to do that? It should be asked to a different sector of the economy. Now, maybe you don't realize, but to make steel, you not only need the iron on the ground, the resource, you also need the metallurgical coal. Does Uganda has metallurgical coal? No. Kenya has, Tanzania have. Then you need infrastructure because to move the coal and burn it to make the steel, you need a lot of infrastructure. Is this infrastructure ready in Uganda at the moment? I think the answer is no. It might come, but at this stage, it's not there. And also maybe one thing that Uganda needs to understand is that you are not alone. You are already in an East African community, and you are competing with other countries which also have iron ore and maybe coal. And they also ask of me very often, why don't you beneficiate our iron ore before selling it? And it's the same question that comes up all the time. And I say, yes, I would love to beneficiate it because I would get more money for my company for it. But we are not there yet. We are not ready. And at the end of the day, we need to sell our ore to somebody, to customers, to clients, to off-takers. And if you ask me today, where would the iron ore of Uganda go to? Unfortunately, I'll have to answer, it can only go to to the Chinese or to the Indians or to the European, because they are capable of making steel at a price that is not competitive at this stage. So coming back to the iron ore example, if let's say you dream Uganda makes steel, you still have to make steel at a cheaper price than Chinese and Indians. And do you think that is feasible at this stage? I don't think so. Maybe it will happen, but at this stage, no. And therefore, the iron ore in Uganda remains in the ground. And unfortunately, that is the reality. And I can take you through nickel and rare earth and copper and give you example of these metals and the beneficiation.
Thank you. Thank you, Mulrelly. Can you still please be with us? I'll have a second question coming to you. But since you speak about gold, allow me to bring in Mr. Nicholas Muhereza, who is a legal consultant for African Gold Refinery, which is one of the companies that has invested into the next process of the gold value chain, and to ask him from his own experience as people who already invested in the country, because they have already invested about $15 million. What is the business environment like? And based on what Mr. Morelli is saying, what are the challenges that are being faced in terms of perception, reality, versus what actually happens on the practical ground?
I hope I can be heard very well.
Yes, clear.
Thank you so much, Agre, for a wonderful question. And the previous speaker, I think, was very categorical. My name is Muhereza Nicholas. Once again, I'm from AGR, and I'm a consultant in petroleum law and mining. Very privileged, really, to be here to represent AGR, but also associate with the chamber and all the partners. As mentioned very audibly by the experienced gentleman about value addition, the reason why AGR came into the market back in 2014, 2017, when they were officially launched and opened by His Excellency the President, was particularly to help or to be the one-stop center for different stakeholders, especially artisanal miners in different parts of the country, and also being a regional hub to ensure that gold can be refined to 99.9. And I should emphasize that AGR refines or has capacity to refine gold to 99.9 bullion level. And it's the only gold refinery that does that in Eastern Central Africa. I know we have several licensed refineries under the law, but as regards to having the capacity to refine gold to the international bullion standard, which is 99.9, it's only African Gold Refinery that has that technical capacity, and it's willing to share it with the other licensed partners in Uganda and in the region to ensure that we can indeed add value that the gentleman was talking about, because we don't expect our miners in Busia, like what the Waga guys have just done recently. We congratulate them. Or people from Ovende, Buhweju, Karamoja. We have just had an aeromagnetic survey. We are ready as AGR to offer that value addition. They already mentioned jewelry production, watches like the Rolexes. Our ladies love beautiful earrings, and mention it. AGR is already in that process to add value to our minerals. And Uganda, in Uganda and the region, as you are aware, AGR has that capacity. We know there has been negative publicity out there. Of course, no one would want a banana republic like Uganda to be a Dubai. So you'll see people writing all fake news. Excuse me to use a word, but it's the truth. And I'm happy that the chamber has actually stood with the industry to make sure that we fight such negative energy. But as far as AGR is concerned, Ashaba, as you asked the good question, we are there to add value to the international standard, but also transfer skills to Ugandans. You know, AGR is here, it has been here, as mentioned, has invested over $30 million for the last 6-7 years. But one of the most important things is that many Ugandans have been able to learn how to turn raw gold, not merely smelting it and exporting it via aeroplane seats, but also taking it through customs. And Uganda has been able to earn some wonderful forex, which we need badly. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nicholas, for that insightful unpacking of what AGRA is doing. Morelli, if you're still with us, I'd like to come back to you.
Yes, I am.
So in terms of your same experience of having worked with the different majors and minors, and also working with different state organizations, what is your view on how countries can position themselves to be able to attract? Should they go for the major mining companies or they should go for junior mining companies? What is the mix and how can countries position themselves to be able to attract this type of investment? Because sometimes you find countries trying to speak to majors like Vale, which probably is not the right thing to do, and yet they could be speaking to some small juniors on, say, the ASX or TSX to make sure that they can come, find, and then they can move up the value chain to the majors. Please, in about 5-7 minutes,
Yes.
give us your experience regarding this kind of relationship.
No, thank you. It's a question I love because I have been involved with the majors. I was the exploration manager of BHP Billiton, which is the biggest mining company in the world. And I was also regional manager of De Beers, which is the biggest diamond mining company in the world. But for the last 10 years, I've been involved with juniors. So I know both sides of the coin. I know what attracts the junior and the majors into a country. And you're absolutely right. The majors are very powerful at developing mine, but they are, and this, I'd say this in a very provoking way, they're very, very bad at exploring. They're actually almost incapable of exploring and at making discoveries. I know that it is tongue-in-cheek, and I do it on purpose. I work for both the major and the junior, but I know that for every dollar that the major spends in exploration, 70 cents will go into other things than exploration. You know, it's completely the other way around for a junior. Out of $1 spent in exploration, you know, 70 will go in the ground in doing things. So you need a mix because you need, as you just said, you need the majors and the juniors in your company, in your country. And I've been faced with the question in some countries. A minister telling me, we don't want juniors, we only want majors. And I have to tell them, unfortunately, you need both because the juniors are going to be entrepreneur enough to make discoveries. They are going to be risk-taking at the very early stage of an exploration pipeline to explore and to make discoveries and to develop the discovery as well very often. The major, they only come a little bit after, and they come when the mine has been found, and they come to develop the mine. And you need them too. You know, you need them because they bring a lot of good governance, environmental security, very good social impact. Very different strategies and very different objectives of the two companies. But at the end of the day, we are all here to make money, to make a profitable venture. You know, whether we are junior or majors, that's what drives us. So how can Uganda then attract the Rio Tinto and the Vale and the BHP Billiton? Well, they are after what they call the low-cost, long-term mine. So they're after big copper and big iron ore and big nickel deposits. You know, but they are going to rely on the junior to find them. The juniors are more speculative, they're more entrepreneur. They are in the game to make the discovery and buy and sell it out or make you know, some share gains. But you need them, otherwise the majors are not going to be able, as I said before, they're not going to be able to make the discovery. So you need the mix, you need them both. And what attracts both of them at the end into a country are things that Uganda are already doing. A good jurisdiction, a good mining law, stability. We talked about all these things yesterday. You know, flying the regional airborne magnetic and radiometric survey over Uganda was a fantastic decision by the government. If the Makutu rare earths project becomes the next rare earth mine in Africa, and I think it will, I am involved with them, just that discovery will pay for the cost of that airborne survey. Just one discovery will make. And it's again an example. We, Benzo, with a couple of junior Uganda, found that Makutu deposit, brought it to the junior market in Australia. They are busy developing it very aggressively, but it is very likely that eventually they are also going to pass it on to a major, because it's a big, big project.
Thank you very much.
And that's the way things work.
Yeah, thank you very much, Morelli. And I think it's important for our viewers to understand that between there is the junior market and then there is the majors. The junior markets really are the finders. They come in to do the exploration, and that is what capital they have and the expertise that they have. Find, make it a resource that is bankable, and then they can offload it off to a major who will then run a mining operation. Thank you very much, Morelli, and thank you for that wisdom. We hope to have you again next time. But allow me to conclude this panel by going back to Mr. Muhereza Nicholas. Just in about 3 minutes, could you be able to speak to us regarding an investment that's already in the country and some of the challenges they are facing? Because I've seen a couple of press and different media speaking about what AGR is not doing or what they are doing wrongly. And then also the fact that investments, once they come into the country, need to be protected by the state, by us, and the people who are benefiting from it, because the investment is not for just the entrepreneur, but it's for everyone who is in Uganda.
Absolutely agree. Thank you so much for a wonderful question. And also tapping into the great minds of people who have been in the mining sector really for a long time. It's always nice to listen to such counsel from people that can actually come here and guide our policy directions, really. I'm sure the previous speakers yesterday were very, very, really elaborate regarding some of the challenges that we are having in the mineral sector. If you look at the law, I mean, the proposed legislation, especially on the levies or the taxation, is really anti-investment. I mean, you can't be wanting to sell something and then you close the road. You understand? Legally speaking, as a lawyer, I think we need regulatory stability in the country within the law. I have had people suggest, especially the government suggest PSAs or production sharing agreements in the mining sector. Technocrats have advised against that. I think we should listen to the private players. Whereas Uganda is rich in mineral wealth, it is not the government of Uganda that is going to explore or even get the, let's say, the gold ore from the ground. It is the private investors, people coming in here through FID or foreign direct investment, money coming from abroad. So if you want to do that, then it is very paramount for both the government and all the stakeholders to ensure that the law is investor friendly. So the best way forward is to listen to the recommendations of, for instance, the Chamber of Mines and Petroleum, which represents the interests of the private players in our economy. These are very trying times. We are now post-COVID. We need to attract investment. You cannot come from nowhere and come up with, for instance, crazy, I'm sorry to use the word, crazy legislation in terms of the 10%, for instance, on import of gold. If you want to make Uganda a gold hub, you have one of the biggest refineries in your country. So the best thing to do would be to reduce the levy and tap into the indirect benefits of having what we call a gold hub, a Dubai-like. If you go to Dubai, they have a free tax zone where you can trade your goods without actually paying specific taxes. What that means is that Dubai is looking at the indirect benefits of doing business without necessarily paying tax. I think the president has always talked about not taxing vendors, for instance. You can always tax them, as he normally mentions on a bottle of beer. You don't need to tax everything, actually, to make money. African Gold Refinery has increased the possibility of tracing goods or gold that is going out of the country. Sometime back, Agri would agree with me that we didn't have any statistics, either from the Bank of Uganda or from URA or even Ministry of Finance. But as of now, Uganda is known as a gold exporter. Why? Because the business or the sector has been streamlined, because AGR can now receipt the gold that is being exported. So we are actually indirectly fighting smuggling of gold, which brings in money. People can no longer use these porous borders to actually export our gold, or even through the DRC, through Tanzania, through Kenya, and you can mention it. So if we can make sure that we can write what is right, because we have people, journalists, I'm sorry to say, with all due respect to that profession, that before you can jump into a story to write about how African Gold Refinery, for instance, is doing so and so, then it would be prudent to actually prove those particular assertions before you can jot them down. Because that sector has so many people, livelihoods, many people, artisanal miners in Mubende, women, people who survive on mining gold, which ends up in the big refinery in Entebbe. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you, Nicholas. I'll just pick up exactly from there on artisanal mining and the view that people have that artisanal miners, they lead to a lot of environmental degradation. They have wrong mining practices, though they get a living out of their activities, which then brings me to Mr. Gerrit. I hope he's already online with us. The practice leader, Risk and Finance for Marsh Advisory, South Africa, to speak to us on why we as Uganda have to focus on sustainability and rehabilitation as a developing country versus developing countries with respect to mining for socio-economic transformation. Mr. Gerrit, I hope you're with us. Can you hear us?
Hear me?
Yes, you can hear us?
Yes, yes, I can hear you. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
We are aware. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity this morning. Unfortunately, I'm also dialing in today from South Africa, but I just thought I would share some of our thoughts, in South Africa in terms of sustainability. So there's a big focus on growth in Uganda, and I mean, to be honest with you, in a country that I've got very little knowledge, I did a bit of background searching and checks and read up a lot about your country. And it's actually surprising that Uganda, and from a South African's perspective, has been very low-key, in terms of mining. But I would still like to share with you a couple of concepts in terms of sustainability. Now, in Marsh, we look after a couple of significant clients in South Africa in terms of mining rehabilitation. And there's a couple of lessons to be learned. And I've prepared 3 slides, which I'll quickly share with you to take you through. The one is the impact of rehabilitation, and lessons learned from other countries, especially in my own experience. But then there's also methods in financing this rehabilitation. So if you can just give me a second, I'll quickly share my screen here. I'm hoping everyone can see my screen. So the first point of reference is why rehabilitation? Why is it such a focus these days? And I think if you look at international markets and foreign investment, there's a renewed focus, or I can even say a new focus on ESG, environmental, social, and governance. And that really drives investment decisions and processes. There's also a lot of documentation and articles written about abandoned mines, and which is also a huge problem in South Africa, but not only in South Africa. Our neighbors, Botswana's got the same issue. And I think with the view of Uganda starting up and really jump-starting their mining sector with all the mineral wealth that you've got, it's really an important focus point, and to learn from lessons that's been, or lessons from the past, and to make sure that you don't fall into the same pitfalls. And I think the Chamber of Mines in Uganda will be a critical role in monitoring and regulating these activities. The last point here is the effect on other industries. Now we know Uganda's got a fairly significant tourist industry. Now the effect of non-rehabilitation of mines, or mines going into liquidation or being abandoned, and nobody actually there to look after the rehabilitation from a financial point of view, puts an extra burden on your fiscus. And at the end of the day, spending money on rehabilitation from a previous a mining house, that is money being taken away from another industry where you can grow your GDP. And therefore, although the focus is on mining, it also has a direct impact on all of your other industries, especially on the fact that, I read that Uganda's got 18% of your surface area is water. Now, if you look at water as a resource in the world, it's probably the biggest focus point everywhere is fresh water. Now, you've already got that. The trick here is to look after those resources and to make sure that the mining, in terms of sustainability, does not deplete or pollute those resources. Now, there's just two lessons I want to show out here. The one is in South Africa. So currently the DMR and the Department of Mineral Resources in South Africa, it's got a list of over 6,000 abandoned minings. Now, we know South Africa has got a very old history of mining and a gold rush, and it's a lot more regulated now. The issue is those old mines, 6,000 of them, have been abandoned. And now it's up to the government to rehabilitate those old mines and make it safe. And in addition, you're sitting with old mines that are basically taking up space in terms of land occupation, so you can't develop the land in terms of crops or housing, etc. So it's got a very long tail. Now at the moment, at the rate that the DMR in South Africa is rehabilitating these old mines, they only do 10 per year. Now you can see it's going to take us 600 years to really just take care of a problem, and this is going to be a problem for futures to come in South Africa, unfortunately. Now, if we look at Botswana, there was a copper and nickel mining company, BCL, which was placed into liquidation. And I'll tell you now why this is interesting. It was placed in liquidation, and once they've liquidated everything, the company actually made a provision. They raised the liability in their accounts to take care of the rehabilitation of the mine. But that liability was never backed by any cash or current assets, to be able to actually do the rehabilitation. So in the end, when the liquidation was over, you're sitting with another abandoned mine, and it becomes government's problem. Now, the interesting thing is currently Botswana is looking at legislation on the rehabilitation of old mines and even current mining, where they are enforcing that liabilities are also backed by actual cash. So that is ring fence, and it protects the government from rehabilitation requirements in future, so you don't have this scenario. Now, currently, this has not been gazetted, and it's sort of a work in progress, but that is where Botswana is moving towards to. Obviously, in South Africa, we've got, and my next slide will show you, in South Africa, there's a couple of options for mining rehabilitation, and that's really the space that myself and our advisory team operates in, especially this little green block here, the insurance guarantees. Now, what happens in South Africa? You've got a liability with the DMR. You can either fund that liability. So yearly they do an assessment, determine what would be the rehabilitation cost. They determine that, it might be 100 million or 100 million US dollars. Then what's the options really? So first you can deposit cash with the DMR. Second one, you can issue a bank guarantee. So you basically, have an investment at a bank. On the back of that investment, the guarantee is issued to the DMR, and that cash is ring fenced. The negatives about those two is you are parting away with your cash, and especially in an environment like Uganda, where we want to invest, we want to whatever capital is available, we want to put into the business or into mining to grow the mining. Now, sort of some of this cash is down actually ring fence, and you're getting a return in South Africa. A return on let's say on a money market is coming at about 4%, where in mining you can probably do 18-20%. So it's a bit of a a no-brainer in terms of, funding for that rehabilitation. The one method that's also been rolled out in South Africa is developing a trust, a mining rehabilitation trust. Now that trust is also ring-fenced, but the issue is the moment you've got cash going into a trust, it stays there, and if your liability is revised and it comes out as a lesser amount, then that cash is basically stuck into that in the trust. Now, in our space, and as a last thought from my side, what we're doing in South Africa, and it's been a very effective solution, is in cooperation with a couple of insurers, they have rolled out, and it's been going for a couple of years, insurance guarantees. So what happens is the insurance guarantee is issued to the DMR, and the insurer will work out what is your life of mine, or you will basically advise based on your reports, but what is your life of mine? And then we try to finance this. So let's say a life of mine is 10 years. We try to finance this guarantee over 10 years. So that cash requirement is not upfront. It's built up over a 10-year period. And that guarantee is then issued to the DMR as security for rehabilitation. So it's just a clever way, and especially for a country that's starting and investing in mining and seeing how we can use mining to better Uganda and the economy as a whole. I think it's a very vital it's a very successful method used in South Africa to not only assist the DMR, in getting actually guarantees, but actually assisting the miners in financing these liabilities. Now, I've made a couple of notes, and I can share afterwards. I can share my slides. But I mean, that's really the story from my side for this morning. But thanks for the opportunity, and you're welcome if there's any questions.
Thank you so much. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, from that wonderful session. It was really an awesome session, learning from the experts. Thank you so much, Mr. Garrity, all the way from South Africa, the practice lead at Risk Finance. Thank you so much for your insights. And I know as Uganda, every player in the sector is going to pick all the information and the advice that you've given us. Right about now, we're going for a break, so stay tuned. We are coming back with an interesting session. You don't want to miss this. See you. Thank you so much once again for tuning in to the 10th Annual Mineral Wealth Conference. The next session is really very interesting, like I mentioned earlier. And in this section, we are going to look at how the mineral sector links up with the other parts of the economy. The next gentleman that is going to speak to us, before I introduce him, I want to ask a simple question to all our viewers out there, those that enjoy matoke. Have you ever asked yourself why you prefer matoke from a particular region, let me say Mbarara and Tungamotu, or another region probably in the north, or another part? Right now, to answer that question, I'm going to introduce Peter Maweje, a geologist at the Directorate of Geological Survey and Mines under the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development. He has carried out several mapping activities, exploration activities with the ministry, and he has been here for quite a while with the ministry, so he has a good expert in that. As well, he has done enough exploration I can't say enough, but he has done really so much exploration with the geothermal resources of Uganda. Right now, join me to welcome Mr. Peter Maweje to speak to us and inform us about the relationship between the rocks and the crops. Thank you. Over to you, Peter.
Thank you very much, the presenter, you for giving me this opportunity to have something to tell to the world on how minerals or rocks are related to crops or food production or to food security. Like I've been introduced, my name is Peter Maweje and I'm an exploration geologist. For today's presentation, I'm going to talk about rocks for crops and see which linkage is there to agricultural sector. But before we do this, we have a simple outline. We cannot have crops without soil, therefore we need to understand the soil, the medium into which crops grow, and we need also to understand the different mineral nutrients that are contained in the soil and are very beneficial to crops. Now, which nutrients should be for which crops? The one we introduced this session was asking why certain areas produce better food crops than others. And these nutrients, actually, many of them come from rocks. Now we need to know which rocks in Uganda provide which nutrients. And we also want to understand which current applications or are there any linkages with the agricultural sector for these different rocks, and we also have a way forward and a conclusion. When you look at soil, I want to draw your attention to that pie chart. 45% of the soil is made out of rocks or small fragments of rocks. The small fragments of rocks are themselves soil, are themselves minerals. Therefore, the biggest percentage of soil is rocks, broken down rocks, and other minerals that are in a soluble form. Soil formation starts, of course, with rock weathering, and when the rocks weather down, different rocks actually give us different minerals, and the soils that result from this weathering give rise to different soil fertilities. Sometimes soils may even be transported from one area to the other, and most of the food grown worldwide comes from deltas and the floodplains. So there is weathering, transportation, and the like. You will excuse me because when we used to go to hospital, doctors used to write some language that we could not understand, and they prescribe medicine. But once we take this medicine, we get cured, even though we cannot read what they write. So just forgive me, this is science, and I have no words to substitute science. So we have different spheres that surround us. We have the one above us, which is air, and we have the one of living things around us, which is the biosphere. And we also have water around us, both in seas, lakes, and the atmosphere, which is the hydrosphere, and the lithosphere, which is the earth onto which we are standing. When these interact, they give rise to soil. In brief, there are 5 soil-forming factors. We need to have a rock that will weather down to give rise to the soil. We need the climate to cause this weathering down, and relief may work on distribution of these soils once the rock has broken down, and the living organisms also have a role to play in soil formation. But time is very important because rocks can break down over thousands or millions of years, so we need a lot of time to have this soil formed. Like I told you that when rocks break down, they give rise to a resultant soil or a resultant fertility. I'm using an example of granite and basalt. If you weather down a granite, it gives you the chalk-like minerals. Those who have walked around some areas, you see chalk. Chalk is kaolinite, and you see sandy soil, sandy particles, that is quartz. Such soil is not very good for crops, as we shall see later on. But basalt results into cementite clay are well balanced in terms of crop nutrients. So the parent rock has a role to play in determining which soils and how fertile this can be. I would want you to remember that there is a branch of science called agrogeology, which links geology and agronomy. So agrogeological research and development requires communication between the soil scientists, in our case from Makerere and the Minister of Agriculture, geologists from our part, Minister of Energy, and the farmers who are using these soils and who are producing out of these soils. There are many, of course, crop nutrients, and we have a lot of elements. When they associate or when they react, they give rise to a combination of minerals, thousands or tens of thousands of them. But in terms of crop production, these elements have been grouped into two. There are those which are major elements, and there are those which are micro or trace elements. They are needed, but not in large amounts. Plants will not grow well once they have deficiencies in either essential or trace elements, or both. It's very important to understand this. For crops, they need, actually here the spheres are almost here because we have the atmosphere giving us rain, and the crops through roots, they are absorbing those elements. The upper tiles contains nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, sulfur, calcium, and magnesium. Those are the major elements which plants need. And below we have the trace elements, which are very important. But even for trace elements, we have those direct ones, the second level of essential, and then the indirect ones. Plants need them to have their tissues function, but they don't build the main part of the crops. Now, we want to understand which nutrients or rocks are important for which rocks or for which crops. In Uganda, that list of crops, those are some of the major crops. I know we might be having some omissions, but those are the typical crops that we grow here in Uganda. How do we link those important rocks to these crops? This is what we do. There is what we call geological ecohabitats, and they try to explain the habitat and the geological locations where modern crops originated from. They go back into history, and this is done through genetic fingerprinting using DNA methodologies, and it is done especially in South America. We have a good researcher, Peter Van Straten. He's very instrumental in this, and he explains a lot of stuff about this. By looking at geological environments of origin, we can understand most important nutrient or rock requirements. That list shows the origin of these crops, where they were wild, and they have been transformed into modern crops that we produce to supply food and something like this. So where they come from, we come to understand. For example, you cannot grow bananas if you don't have enough potassium, which is the K. And the pineapple also need N and nitrogen and potassium and a little phosphorus. but they can survive under low pH soils. Beans need a lot of phosphorus, for example. Maize needs nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. Usually they denote that as NPK in terms of fertilizer. You don't need to have a lot of potassium, a lot of nitrogen and phosphorus when you're growing sweet potatoes. This is just an example. Now, in Uganda, nitrogen is not easily sourced from rocks. We don't have a rock.
I'm sorry, your time is, is really running out. I would really want us to summarize it all for our viewers out there to really understand this in the shortest way possible.
Now I am summarizing.
Thank you.
For these rocks, we don't have rocks to supply nitrogen. We have fluoroapatites in carbonatites to supply phosphorus. We have high potassium volcanics in Bunyaruguru and the Katwe volcanics. We have marbles, limestone, calcareous tufas, and travertine that will give us calcium for those plants. Actually, here I'm mentioning which rock and which location. These are the names of the rocks. Magnesium from dolomitic marbles, and vermiculite from Nemakara, and sulfur, we have gypsum in Kibuku and Lake Mburo. For trace elements, we have basaltic volcanics in Bufumbira, Kabale side. How do we know where these rocks are? The map, the geological map of Uganda shows all the rocks that we have. Most of the rocks that we've talked about are part of this map, and there's a database for which we can search. We can also have aerial surveys to do studies for these rocks for crops.
Thank you, Mr. Peter Maweje. I'm sorry, I have to cut you short, but I know our viewers, as they were following in since yesterday, they actually now know where to find these rocks because we had a very resourceful presentation yesterday. Thank you so much, Mr. Peter Maweje, for your time. Our viewers, I need to inform you that Mr. Peter Maweje has worked with the Agrogeology Association of Uganda. That's why you see he has to explain all those details to us so he can relate well which crops can be grown in which part of the country. So for all that information, feel free to visit the Directorate of Geological Survey and Mines to get all the information to find where you can find which rock and where in Uganda. Thank you so much, Mr. Peter Maweje. Right about now, allow me to invite Mr. Israel Tinkasimire, who is the Commercial Director and Head of Oil and Gas, of course with minerals at Hima Cement, to let us know and also give us more information how the construction industry is linked to the mineral sector and how these linkages can be optimized. You're welcome, Mr. Israel Tinkasimire. Thank you.
So yes, my name is Israel Tinkasimire, and I'm a Commercial Director at Hima and Head of Oil and Gas. And just to... Oh, okay. Can you hear me now? Yes. So my name is Israel Tinkasimire, and I'm the Commercial Director and Head of Oil and Gas at Hima Cement. And just to start this, I would like just to give you a brief background of who we are at Hima, just before I link this to the subject today. So Hima Cement has been present since 1994 after the privatization of Uganda Cement Industries. And we have 3 sites in Kasese in the west, which is the mother plant, in Tororo, where we have the Tororo grinding station, and in Namambe. And these sites have a total capacity of 2.1 million tons of cement. So Hima is also a member of Bamburi. We're also a member of Holcim Group, which is really the biggest cement and construction materials producer in the world at present. Now, talking about Hima and going to try and link this into the topic today. Today, as Hima, we have 90% local content in terms of human resources in our business. And I'll be talking about that more. But most importantly, when you're looking at the mining part, in regards to raw materials, we source 90% of all our raw materials from Uganda, which is very, very important for the mining sector. And that's a major discussion today, linking these two conversations. Now, how do we put this into context? You know, as cities grow, as construction grows in regards to large infrastructure projects, as we see people building homes because of population growth, what's happening? The demand for raw materials and natural resources is blowing up. It's increasing. And we cannot really keep a blind eye to this. So there needs to be equivalent growth in regards to how we develop our minerals and mining. Now, what does this mean? If you look at the mining sector or industries that are mining, most of the extraction sites are actually in very remote areas with very, very complex conditions around them. So how does this link anyway? If you're in a very remote area, more often than not, you have no access road. And in order to set up the access road, you need to construct. And this is where this comes up. So to construct, again, you're going to go into mining because you need gravel, you need all these kinds of materials, and you need cement in actual sense. So what we're trying to drive at here is just to show you that mining and construction are intertwined. They cannot be separated in any way. And this needs to be really pushed further. The mining sector in Uganda presents various opportunities. And these opportunities come in both the metallic minerals and non-metallic minerals. And there are several examples. From where I come from, you look at limestone, you're looking at things like kaolin, but you also have gold, you have iron ore, and the like. And all these need to be explored now with the population that is growing and demand for all these services, demand for materials, and demand for all the other minerals as a result. So industries are being set up to supply, of course, the demand, and these industries need these minerals. So if you're looking at the mining licenses now, compared to a couple of years ago, because of all this pressure, the number of licenses, mining licenses, is really, really increasing. And I think it's a good thing, and this is why we have Chamber of Mines and Petroleum, and then we also have the GSM, to just make sure that the mining activity is actually done properly. And I will talk about this later. Now, again, connecting this to construction, because of all the activity that is happening around mining, and I think in the recent past you've been hearing quite a bit about the oil and gas development, which is also part of mining. And as a result, you hear about the growth coming up in the next 3 years, for example. We have, it's estimated that we'll have 7.6% annual growth in construction. So what does that mean? That means there will be much more cement consumed, much more steel consumed, much more of everything, aggregates and the like. And this again is putting much more pressure on mining. So, and I'll be connecting you to understand why I'm bringing all this together. Now, as a result of construction and mining, you know, these things have forward and backward linkages that are actually advantageous to the economy. And they support the rest of the economy in general, because if you're going to set up a mine, or you're going to set up an extraction site anywhere, you need to have access. And to have access, you need to have a construction company or a contractor that will need to come and clear this road or construct the road. So they're benefiting from this. You also need to have schools built up in these areas, because you're going to set up an activity, there are going to be people coming to work, and because people are coming to work, they have children who need to go to school. There needs to be hospitals built as a result, because you know, people need Medicare. There needs to be hotels built as a result, because people need to find where to sleep, so people have to build homes, people need to set up apartments and the like. Now, linking it to infrastructure development, and I've been already speaking about it, critical infrastructure is very important to mining, as much as mining is important to critical infrastructure. And why is this the case? Because you cannot access the mining without putting in place infrastructure. And this is why you've been seeing, for example, in Bulisa, all this construction around the roads. Today you're seeing the airport being set up in Kabale as a result of the activity that will go up down there. We know that as a result of that, you'll see more heavy construction around the dams because of this, you'll have a refinery which will come up with industrial parks to try and use the byproducts of this oil. And then you have all these other activities that are going to come up as a result. So again, like I said, mining enables infrastructure, but infrastructure also enables mining because you cannot do one without the other. And if we're looking at innovation, and this is where I find this topic very, very exciting for me, innovating, and this is what we do at Hima Cement. We must innovate to satisfy the need that is created by the mining industry. So this is how construction is related. And I'll give you a very basic example. So in mining, if I'm to go a bit broader and look at the region in general, and include the DRC, for example, where we have tailor-made a product to suit the need that came up as a result of one of the gold mines in the DRC, which is called Kibali Gold Mine under Barrick, required a special binder to enable them to, of course, extract the gold, but also fill the stops with paste. And they required a sulfate-resistant cement. And because of our research and innovation, we're able to go deeper. Instead of going out to import these kind of products from abroad, which most people like to do, they usually love to run out of the country, find a cheaper solution, a quicker solution. We decided to innovate it locally. And we were able to get the samples from the mine in the DRC, play with these samples in our laboratory, and come up with a tailor-made product called MineSem Ultra, which we've been supplying for the last 7 years now to this mine. And for me, these are the kind of things that, as a construction industry, we need to tap into in the mining industry to try and make sure that we localize and that we are able to tap into the opportunities together. Now, I will, because of time, try and fast track my presentation and drive towards sustainability. What we're trying to do as Hima Cement, together with the mining industry, is to build sustainable solutions. And to build sustainable solutions, we need to look at the environment. How do we manage the environment? So how do we produce our products for the market in a way that allows us to save on the resources, on the natural resources? How do we use less of the natural resources to produce so that we can have a longer period of time within which the natural resources can last? That's number one. But number two, how do we produce them with lower carbon emissions? And I think the carbon emissions topic is very big now globally. So this is what we're doing, and you will see that on most of our products, you'll see the eco label. And the eco label is basically talking about the amount of carbon emissions that we're reducing on each product that we produce. And just to try and also fast track this, how do we link these two industries? So as the private sector, we really need to develop local suppliers. The local suppliers, be it the transporters, be it the guys who are handling health and safety and the like, need to be trained and developed by ourselves who have been experienced to try and make sure that they can meet the standards of the global standards, which are very stringent and very high. So this we must do, and we do it at Hima Cement. And because of time, I want to just skip right to the end and talk about how do we maximize the linkages. I think that the regulatory framework and the policy of the government really needs to, first of all, link these two industries, mining and construction. Because most of the areas where we've had struggles, it's because there's not adequate infrastructure to enable the mining activities to happen. And this must be done in the policy and regulatory framework. But most importantly, we must train our local resource. So local content. I hear the government has already started talking about this now. We've seen the Petroleum Authority and Chamber of Mines pushing that, especially for oil and gas. But it should be made much broader to make sure that there's knowledge transfer, that the skills are passed on to Ugandans so that we can sustain them as a country, so that we can develop our own local suppliers. We don't need to run abroad all the time when it comes to looking for suppliers that are really, really capable of delivering on some of these industries. We really need to source locally, find it within ourselves to be deliberate about sourcing, to be deliberate about developing our local supply chain, our local skills. And also, I think in the end, we also need to be deliberate about, as a country and legislation, pushing for health and safety. Because if you look at what the globe really requires in regards to supply, and if we're going to really sustain supply in the mining industry, which is huge, we really need to put emphasis on health and safety in every industry so that we begin to train the suppliers within, and also even the locals, to be able to develop the skills required, the sanitation level, for me, innovating, and this is what we do at Hima Cement. We must innovate to satisfy the need that is created by the mining industry. So this is how construction is related. And I'll give you a very basic example. So in mining, if I'm to go a bit broader and look at the region in general, and include the DRC, for example, where we have tailor-made a product to suit the need that came up as a result of one of the gold mines in the DRC, which is called Kibali Gold Mine under Barrick, required a special binder to enable them to, of course, extract the gold, but also fill the stops with paste. And they required a sulfate-resistant cement. And because of our research and innovation, we're able to go deeper. Instead of going out to import these kind of products from abroad, which most people like to do, they usually love to run out of the country, find a cheaper solution, a quicker solution. We decided to innovate it locally. And we were able to get the samples from the mine in the DRC, play with these samples in our laboratory, and come up with a tailor-made product called MineSem Ultra, which we've been supplying for the last 7 years now to this mine. And for me, these are the kind of things that, as a construction industry, we need to tap into in the mining industry to try and make sure that we localize and that we are able to tap into the opportunities together. Now, I will, because of time, try and fast track my presentation and drive towards sustainability. What we're trying to do as Hima Cement, together with the mining industry, is to build sustainable solutions. And to build sustainable solutions, we need to look at the environment. How do we manage the environment? So how do we produce our products for the market in a way that allows us to save on the resources, on the natural resources? How do we use less of the natural resources to produce so that we can have a longer period of time within which the natural resources can last? That's number one. But number two, how do we produce them with lower carbon emissions? And I think the carbon emissions topic is very big now globally. So this is what we're doing, and you will see that on most of our products, you'll see the eco label. And the eco label is basically talking about the amount of carbon emissions that we're reducing on each product that we produce. And just to try and also fast track this, how do we link these two industries? So as the private sector, we really need to develop local suppliers. The local suppliers, be it the transporters, be it the guys who are handling health and safety and the like, need to be trained and developed by ourselves who have been experienced to try and make sure that they can meet the standards of the global standards, which are very stringent and very high. So this we must do, and we do it at Hima Cement. And because of time, I want to just skip right to the end and talk about how do we maximize the linkages. I think that the regulatory framework and the policy of the government really needs to, first of all, link these two industries, mining and construction. Because most of the areas where we've had struggles, it's because there's not adequate infrastructure to enable the mining activities to happen. And this must be done in the policy and regulatory framework. But most importantly, we must train our local resource. So local content. I hear the government has already started talking about this now. We've seen the Petroleum Authority and Chamber of Mines pushing that, especially for oil and gas. But it should be made much broader to make sure that there's knowledge transfer, that the skills are passed on to Ugandans so that we can sustain them as a country, so that we can develop our own local suppliers. We don't need to run abroad all the time when it comes to looking for suppliers that are really, really capable of delivering on some of these industries. We really need to source locally. Find it within ourselves to be deliberate about sourcing, to be deliberate about developing our local supply chain, our local skills. And also, I think in the end, we also need to be deliberate about, as a country and legislation, pushing for health and safety. Because if you look at what the globe really requires in regards to supply, and if we're going to really sustain supply in the mining industry, which is huge, we really need to put emphasis on the health and safety in every industry so that we begin to train the suppliers within and also even the locals to be able to develop the skills required, the sanitation levels, the health and safety standards required to be able to become a supplier. Today, you cannot register anywhere in some of these industries without having that as part of your objectives or your standards. So we really need to be deliberate about that, but most importantly, even take it back home to our families, to our children, because it's a whole, global objective. So there's so much more to be said, but I could stop there for today, and I'll be able to take any more questions. Thank you.
Right. Thank you so much, Mr. Israel Tikansimide. Thank you, our viewers, for following through with us, those on Zoom and on YouTube, as well as NTV Live. Thank you so much for following through. We've heard from the gentleman, and right about now, I'm going to bring in a lady as well. We need to hear from a lady as well in regards to the mineral sector and the linkages in the other, with the other sectors. And right about now, we have Dr. Luisa Marino from Canada. She's tuning in from Canada, and she's going to speak to us right away from Canada. Dr. Luisa, can you hear me?
Can you hear me? Good morning. Well, good afternoon.
Good morning. It must be good afternoon.
Good morning still.
Yes,
yeah,
it's good to have you here. Dear viewers, Dr. Marino is a physics engineer. I need to make her background clear, not because I'm a lady, but yeah, that could also be part of that. With a PhD in material science and mechanics from Imperial College of London in the UK. Currently, she is the CEO of Grafano Energy Limited. I hope I pronounced that right. A junior mining company.
You did.
And she's also on the board of directors of several companies developing strategic minerals and green technologies. So the green technology is the eye-catching thing here in what I've just mentioned about Dr. Marino. So Dr. Marino, I would want to hear from you. Every other day, every single day, the energy demands are really increasing. They're really skyrocketing. And then we have the mineral sector. How are these two connected, the mineral sector and the green energies? How can we link these two in terms of energy?
Well, it is very important. So as you are certainly aware, we are in a process of transition to what many countries are calling zero carbon. And essentially, it's important to support the technologies that will be part of that. And so actually, I have a presentation, and if it's okay, I'll bring it up now.
Yeah.
I hope the viewers can see it as well. And so, if you look at the map of the world, as I'm showing in my presentation, many countries have made targets and to phase out the internal combustion engine vehicles, so that so that in the future we could have only electric vehicles. And so in Canada, actually, this graph is not very good showing that. But so in Canada, we essentially have changed our target. Instead of 2040, it is now 2035. And but there are many other countries that, like Norway and others that are in Europe, that are basically bringing those targets closer. So the same thing with different manufacturers around the world. And for Uganda, 77% of your vehicles are imported from Japan. So countries, producers or manufacturers like Honda and Toyota are very relevant to you, and to see where they decide that they're not going to manufacture any more internal combustion vehicles, but it's going to be purely electric. So in addition to the vehicles, we know, like I said, including Uganda, many countries have made commitment to become a carbon neutral economy, which means not just the vehicles, adopting those vehicles or making targets, sales targets. Essentially what they're saying is that after a certain year, we're not going to sell vehicles with internal combustion engines, it's going to be all electric. But they're also trying to essentially achieve the production of energy instead of burning coal to be essentially carbon free, like hydropower that Uganda has quite a lot. And we use solar panels or wind turbines. And so when you adopt these technologies, you need specialty minerals. So what this shows is that in the beginning, back in the 1700s, there were a few critical materials, and as we continue to industrialize it becomes we end up needing more and more critical materials. Many of them minor metals that are, produced mostly as secondary byproduct, and so. The other issue that we have is that China essentially is the largest producer of more than 20 materials of those that are considered critical. So as you're probably aware, the US as well as Japan and Europe, they publish what they consider the critical materials for them. And if you look at them, there are more than 40, and of those, more than half, China is the leading producer. Canada is the leading producer, only potash and cesium. We produce as well a little bit of lithium and cobalt, but we are not a major producer. The largest producer is China. So what countries are trying to do essentially is to become independent. And so Europe is now following a China domestic aid model, which essentially to give aid, support, as you can see here in this press release, to their companies. To build a supply chain. And as part of that, they created a raw materials alliance. And I highlighted there that it's also to assess EU funding opportunities and financing sources for investment opportunities inside and outside Europe. So this brings an opportunity here for countries outside Europe to actually access billions of dollars potentially to help Europe and their allies to secure these minerals. So I just present here quickly the materials demand for EVs. We can see that right now about 27,000 per year is used in electric vehicles, but this is going to increase to over 1 million tons. And for that, it's going to be need for many, many mines. The same thing with nickel, the same thing with many other minerals. So what does that mean for Uganda? So essentially, it gives Uganda an opportunity to participate. So Uganda has many occurrences of critical materials. The lithium has been detected. Cobalt and copper were actually historically produced. There's also rare earths. There was, mention of that. So in order to be able to attract, funding or develop or participate rather in this global supply chain for the global green agenda, Uganda has to make the mining conditions attractive to investors, including prospectors and developers. And the previous speaker have mentioned that prospectors and developers are very important in addition to large companies as well. But since what Uganda has is an exploration industry more than a mining, so there is a need to really continue discovering and developing these materials, these minerals. Uganda really has to take it easy on these junior miners and make it attractive for them. And so continue to focus on attracting investors and attract EU and US government funding. There is that Raw Materials Alliance. US has similar programs, so the government should interact with them and try to collaborate. Also collaborate with other countries like Canada and Australia that has many years of experience and very attractive markets for funding. And like the previous speaker also mentioned, improve mining-related technical and academic training in Uganda. That's essential to become sustainable. And finally, to continue doing what they're doing as far as infrastructure, continue to build power and transportation infrastructure, so that makes it easy for developers to access somewhat perhaps more difficult areas for development of minerals. So this is a quick presentation. So I leave it as that, and I'll take questions now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Marino. That was really pretty beautiful. Yeah, like I mentioned, I'm not saying all that because she's a lady, but yeah, that's it. And looking at the minerals that are required for the green energies, Uganda is really situated in the best location for this. And I am sure Uganda should be now focusing on this so that we should be the suppliers to the entire world, since most of our minerals are not yet tapped. So thank you so much, Dr. Luisa Marino, for joining us all the way from Canada for that beautiful insight with minerals sector and green energies. Thank you so much. To our dear viewers, thank you for following through until now. We still have more interesting sessions coming ahead, but right about now, we are going to break off for about 5 minutes. Just go take a cup of coffee or water, and we'll be right back here, both on NTV and on YouTube channel for the next session after 5 minutes. See you then.
Hey, babe. Hey, babe. Just the two of us? Huh? This romantic nature. Can't beat this.
Beat this?
Yeah, can't beat this. Oh, hey, where did you come from?
You can't beat the Champions League,
Europa League, La Liga, Serie A, and the Premier League.
I've brought...
Eddie, all 380 matches of it, with its own dedicated Super Sports channel, my G.
And you can watch this unbeatable brilliance wherever and whenever you want on the DSTV app.
Nothing compares to DSTV's unbeatable football offering, so stay connected to watch the best football on the planet.
Wait, when did you get here?
Did you know that Downy Concentrate softens and freshens 2.5 more clothes per litre than the leading fabric softener? It's more concentrated, so use only 1/3 of a cap.
Get one sachet of Downy Concentrate at 500 shillings.
When they flip and roll and start to crawl away, tape diapers can be hard to put on and can come loose. Then it's time for Pampers Pants. With all-round fit, they're easy to pull on even when they're moving around. Pampers Pants absorb wetness rapidly and lock it away better for up to 12 hours of dryness. So when they start to crawl, you know it's time for Pampers Pants.
Now available in low counts at only 7,000 shillings per pack.
Wake up with God.
What is it that you are going through?
Do you know that a human being is a walking battle?
In this world, we have many poor billionaires. Why?
Wake up with God every Monday to Friday at 5:45 to 6 a.m.
Right now, you wake up, you even don't know what's around you.
If you wake up with God and let Him know what you have ahead,
there will be peace and stability in this nation, that there will be development, which is a holistic development.
You raise me up so I can...
And I want to stand with those who have lost their dear ones, those who are mourning the loss of their friends.
But there is a master of masters, the Lord of the road, our Lord Jesus Christ, who will come up and say, calm down your storm.
Those who wake up with God, they dine with God.
Wake up with God.
Only on NTV.
There is a place very far from this world, and the only way you can get there is through music.
The Beat. TV's hottest stage. With the freshest names in the game. Fresh music. With your hosts Linda Dane, Sammy Watala, and Daggy Nice. Catch NTV The Beat every weekday at 5 p.m. We are NTV The Beat, and we turn on your musical world.
Get inspired and motivated by Farida.
Twebangula mu bintu ebyenjawulo ebituyamba okufuuka abantu ab'omugaso. That is life coaching.
Strategy ebampaji eye business naye nga yeetunuulidde enteekateeka.
Bagamba abasajja abo si bafumbo tebawasa naye ate tebafanza tebatubalira mu bantu bali single.
Stop, think, reset and move on.
And lighten up the rest of your day.
Ne personality Friday. Tubeerawo okuzzaamu amaanyi n'essuubi. Mwasiza mutya.
For the must-attend events,
log in into your weekly extra entertainment magazine.
Endorsed by your favorite celebrity.
Hello, this is The Band and you're watching NTV.
So I thought, let me try something different, something short, something sexy.
Let's just say you don't have to be there because we are always there to get you the extra.
Let Tina Tacey light up your new week.
Just stay logged in for the extra.
Fashion and beauty at its best. The NTV Style Project, showcasing the latest trends in fashion and style. Red carpet moments, fashionistas, plus tips to keep you in the good books of the fashion world.
I think when a lady is having her hair out, she should visit her hair salon like once in a week.
A little goes a long way. If you put so many layers, the lipstick will crack.
From Bettina Tiana and Rama.
Ulmalaya.
Heart-stopping drama.
Don't you ever lay filthy hands on my baby again.
A fight for passion and power.
Zach, do you really think money is the solution to everything?
Unbreakable family ties. Catch NTV Power of Legacy for a riveting homemade Ugandan drama series. From entertainment to informative and inspiring shows. The human spirit is resilient and unstoppable. For stories that move your heart, stories that comfort.
An oncoming truck ran over Julius, tires sliding over his stomach and pelvic area. It is a miracle that he survived, but he did. How are you?
I'm in a much better place.
Experiences of reconciliation, courage, and making your life better.
Girls, unlike boys, are so fearful, they are highly emotional, so many things put them to the wall. But then we don't know how to address the issues of their lives.
Watch NTV Perspective.
Goat farming brings in quick cash. The bull and the savannah grow very fast compared to the Muvende goats.
Wealth creation, the opportunities in Uganda and beyond.
Hey, babe. Hey, babe. Just the two of us? Huh? This romantic night? You can't beat this.
Beat this?
Yeah, can't beat this. Oh, hey, where did you come from?
You can't beat the Champions League.
Europa League, La Liga, Serie A,
and the Premier League.
Eddie, all 380 matches of it, with its own dedicated Super Sport channel, my G.
And you can watch this unbeatable brilliance wherever and whenever you want on the DSTV app.
Nothing compares to DSTV's unbeatable football offering. So stay connected to watch the best football on the planet.
Wait. When did you get here?
Did you know that Downy Concentrate softens and freshens 2.5 more clothes per litre than the leading fabric softener? It's more concentrated, so use only 1/3 of a cap.
Get one sachet of Downy Concentrate at 500 shillings.
From that brief break, but I know it was beneficial to you. And thank you for being wonderful viewers, for all the time that you've given in. And I know you are learning so much from this, and you are going to support the mineral sector. The next session is going to really focus on artisanal mining. I know we've heard about this from all the previous speakers, and this session is going to be very important. We want to see how we can boost, or how the artisanal mining subsector can be boosted for the transformation of the entire mining sector. So before us, we have gentlemen here. Looking so wonderful, and we'll also be having another gentleman joining us from Zimbabwe. Wellington, are you online? Wellington, can you hear me? Yes, I know.
Yes, I can hear you. I can hear you loud and clear.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning, how are you?
Fine, thank you.
I can hear you live and, yes, very loud and clearly.
Good to have you with us this morning as we turn to afternoon. Before we proceed into the entire discussion, I have a gentleman, like I mentioned earlier. I have Mr. David Sebagala, who is a senior mining inspector with the Directorate of Geological Survey and Mines. Good to have you here. He has served with the ministry for a couple of years, so he has a good experience, and he has worked with the artisanals, so he's going to really give us more insight in this sector and how we can transform it. Mr. David Sebagala, could you briefly inform our viewers what ASM is all about, and for someone to really know what is ASM?
Thank you very much, Naomi. ASM is artisanal and small-scale mining. I don't really understand why they seem to bundle artisanal miners and small-scale miners together, because artisanal miners are very different from small-scale miners. Artisanal miners are miners who do their mining with rudimentary tools. Their mining operations are labor-intensive in most cases, and they rarely use any form of machines, let alone the personal protective equipment. So for a layman out there, artisanal mining is basically rudimentary mining, whereas small-scale mining can have some form of mechanization, but not to the extent that you find with large-scale operations. So I don't understand why it is ASM, because it contains two different things. Yeah, that's what ASM means.
Thank you, Mr. David Sebagala, for that brief insight about the ASM. I think it also sounds good, ASM, just as it is. Right now, kindly join me to welcome Mr. Wellington, that has joined us all the way from Zimbabwe, to give us a picture, you know, how Zimbabwe has handled artisanal and small-scale miners. Wellington, over to you. Wellington, we are waiting to hear the beautiful stories about ASM in Zimbabwe. All right, as we wait for Wellington to join us, I am going to join the gentleman over here so that I can balance.
Naomi, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, Wellington?
Naomi?
Yes, please, I can hear you.
Naomi?
Wellington? Please go ahead
can
and
you
share
repeat
with
the
us the successive story of ASM in Zimbabwe.
Yeah, what was the question? Yes, I can hear you.
Please go ahead and share with us the successful story of ASM in Zimbabwe. All right, we shall be having Wellington joining us a bit later, but right about now, on my left, I have Mr. Chibidige, who is
I'm having challenges with my net.
Who is the national coordinator. He's the national coordinator of the artisanal and small-scale miners, but he will briefly, in 1 minute, introduce to us what he is doing there and how this was formed. And you also tell us how many ASMs do we have in Uganda? Do they even exist? Or it's a statement that we go around talking about. Do they exist? How many are they? Where can we find them? So Mr. Emma Chibidige, kindly brief us on that.
Thank you very much. Emmanuel Chibidige is my name. I'm the national coordinator of the Uganda Association of Artisanal and Small-Scale Miners. I'm also the General Secretary of Mubende United Miners Assembly, where my operations are situated. The National Association was formed in 2018, just after evictions in Mubende, the famous ones by the investors. And after Mubende, we saw evictions spreading to Buweju, to Busia. We decided to bundle and make a strong association to respond to such evictions. Basically, we represent the interests of the small-scale miners and artisanals who the law for a long time had ignored. The first law was made for the investors, or the colonialists made the law that stops the Ugandans to participate in the mineral sector. We are seeing the new law, as we shall be discussing. We have our input, what we think can be a favorable environment for the local investors to participate in the industry. And we have so many players in the industry. In the past, the development minerals like the sand, clay, stones, they were not legislated, they were not in the law. Today, in the new bill, we are seeing they're going to be licensed. And our association does not cover everyone in the country. But our members today, we stand at 15,427. We have 5 regions, the central region, we have the northern region, the eastern region, and the western region, and the Karamoja region. So now these regions, we focus on mineral-rich districts, and that's where we have most of our members and our offices. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Emma Chibidige, the national coordinator for the artisanal and small-scale miners in Uganda. So at least we are sure that we have the artisanal miners. He mentioned there are over 15,000. Yeah. So we have all that number of artisanal miners in Uganda. This is really very overwhelming, and he mentioned that actually these are not the only artisanal miners. So over to you, Mr. David Sebagala. What are the interventions that government is doing to boost this sector? The fact that we see that there are really many in the country, and their activity and participation in the mineral sector.
Thank you, Naomi. There is a general notion amongst the artisanal and small-scale miners and most of the CSOs in Uganda. There's a notion that the artisans have been neglected by government.
Is
they
that
are
true?
left out. No, of course, it is not true, because as the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development, we have taken part in a lot of, we have put up a lot of programs that try to uplift and boost the artisan and mining subsector in this country. But generally, if I'm to break it down for you, the interventions by government are in 4 categories. And the first category is building an enabling legal framework for the artisan and small-scale mining sector. And in that, the first step was to recognize them. Because at first they thought we don't recognize them, mainly because most of them were initially illegal in their operations, and there was an unwillingness amongst the artisanal miners to remain illegal, but yet they wanted to access government services. So the first step was to recognize them. And if you look at the mining and mineral policy of 2018, one of the strategies, one of the objectives of that policy is to boost, to improve the artisan and small-scale mining sector. So that we have done there in that policy. The second one was provisions for appropriate licenses for them. Now, if you look at the Mining Act of 2003, it provided for artisan and small-scale mining in what we refer to as the location license. Okay. We applied light-handed legislation, which means that license is very easy to acquire. Its obligations are easy to fulfill. It was not subject to environmental permitting before you can get it, which is a prerequisite for other mining licenses. But because we wanted something that could be done by the Montua Wansi, we provided for light-handed legislation in the location license. In the new bill, when we reviewed the 2003 Mining Act, we noticed that the location license did not provide for all the needs of the artisanal miner. So in the new bill, we have separated the artisanal in the bill that is now before Parliament, because it was tabled for the first reading on 5th, yesterday.
Okay. Oh.
So we have separated artisanal mining and small-scale mining, and now we provide for 2 licenses. We have a license for artisanal mining with still light-handed legislation. So, and by providing for artisanal mining and then small-scale mining and then medium-scale mining licenses, we have also provided for progression. We don't want our artisan miners to remain artisanal miners forever. So that's why we have done that intervention. Then the other intervention is in skills development, where we do sensitization and training of miners. We do this on a quarterly basis. Every time we go to do routine inspection and monitoring of mining operations in this country, we also plan for sensitization. We also do sensitization of the artisanal miners where we find them at their sites. In so doing, we are trying to improve their skills. Inspection and monitoring, one would not understand why that is relevant. But when we monitor their operations, we are able to keep them at bay with us, and we keep a close relationship between the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development and then the artisanal miners. The other intervention that we are still working on is the creation of regional training centers. The Ministry of Energy is constructing beneficiation centers or regional training centers, one in Fort Portal,
yep,
which is Kabarole district, and then we are also constructing another one in Tungamo. These are areas that are close to places where there is artisanal production of tin, wolfram, and tantalite. The intention is to bring these services of training, of transferring knowledge and skills to the artisanal miners. They can always go to these centers and then be trained in mineral beneficiation, how best can they separate their minerals from the waste after they have mined it. So that is also ongoing. And then the other intervention we are doing is what I call identification, registration, and zoning. Artisanal miners, some of these interventions that we are undertaking as the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development are a result of the allegations that have been made in the past by the artisanal miners. One of them was that we don't recognize them. So through the recognition we are moving, we have hired a consultant that is working together with the Ministry of Energy, and we're moving across the country to ensure that we know where the artisanal miners are, and then we are going to do a biometric registration of all the miners in the different places. And then under the 2021 Mining and Minerals Bill, we have also put a provision where we are going to gazette areas for artisanal and small-scale mining. And the last one is how are we as a ministry providing for transformation of the artisanal and small-scale miners. Now, one of the things that I've also already talked about that we're doing to ensure that artisanal miners are not stagnant is the training, the skills development. When we believe that when we train them and equip them with better skills, then they will be able to do their work better. But we have also provided in the law for progressive licenses. We don't want someone to hold an artisanal mining license for 30 years. We want you to hold it for maybe 2-3 years, maybe 4 years maximum. You advance, and then you go to maybe small scale. And through constant training, we believe this will be achieved. That's a summary of the interventions that we are taking as government to ensure that the ASM sector is boosted in this country.
Thank you, Mr. David Sebagala, for those brilliant interventions that government is putting across to boost the artisanal sector. I think you mentioned in the law that the new bill that is before Parliament, that this time around, the A and the SM are going to be separate.
Yeah.
Wow, I think that will be really much better, so that we know there are those that are using rudimentary tools and then those that are using at least some small, simple tools. Well, thank you so much, Mr. David Sebagala, for that insightful briefing about the interventions that government is doing. So it is true that government is not actually neglecting the artisanal and small-scale miners in the country. So, Mr. Emma Chivirige, kindly tell us about this association that you formed, the National Association for Artisanals. What do you do? Where is it located? Where can we find you? Do other artisans also know about this association? Please.
Okay, thank you very much. Like I told you, for the last 10 years I've been in this sector, we've been fighting to be known. And you heard from Mr. Sebagala that now the new law recognizes us, meaning we did not exist before. We were there, but the law did not know that we were there, and were regarded as illegal miners. But we wanted to change that term to native miners, because the law found us in place. Minerals are mined from the land, and we own the land. No one is mining from space. Yeah, otherwise they wouldn't be asking for these surface rights and whatever. So we formed the association, one, to fight for our rights, inform our members of their rights. Number two, to advocate for legalization and formalization. You realize that the cadastral system of Uganda, the licensing system, provides for first come, first serve. That means the one who gets to know first gets first. We have our friends in Karamoja, where you find the full village has one smartphone for the MP or a receiver chairperson. So the miners are not aware of what is taking place. In 2019, we went with the ASEMP to do consultation on the new bill. And we were trying to ask our fellow miners, what should be amended? But they didn't even know that there was a law.
Wow.
This law is in English. 90% of our miners don't understand the language. Yeah. And even the local leaders, starting from the local government, they don't know the law. So we are amending something that we don't know. Anyhow, because of civil society organizations, Action Aid, ASEMP, Gobrai Salat, and so many others, they engaged and first of all trained miners, trained their fellow miners on what is taking place. So we decided from there to know what is taking place. So our association, Nogasm, partnered with these organizations, together with the Ministry of Energy. They helped us in the formation of the association after the evictions to put in place what we thought was enough for us. But when you see the law that was passed by government, by cabinet, is very inadequate in regards to the issues of ASMs. Yeah. Take for example, you won't find that a small-scale mining lease is 5 years. And in mining, the first 3 years, you're just looking for what to do. If you lack and you get what to do in the first 3 years, that's why even exploration license, they give you for 3 years first. And then 2 years, you're organizing yourself and the resources to start doing the work. That's if you find. So you find that for ASM, they tell you in 5 years, you have found the mineral, you have mined it, and you're qualified to go to another level, or you stay there. So our association does that, and we have engaged with the ministry, with Sabagala, and we hope we're actually going to go back to Parliament. When this bill goes to the Committee of Parliament of Natural Resources, we as an association are going to go there, and they're going to present our position paper and what we feel is good for us. And then, in the first presentation today, there's a gentleman who was representing the African Gold Refinery, Asia, the refinery, yeah? And they were talking about having this mineral refined here. And as ASM is one of their challenges of financing, banks here do not finance mining activities. First reason, they have largely been informal, yeah? So number two, where we sell the minerals, these people get licensed and they can sell a lot of things here in Kampala, but ask them where does it come from. They don't know. So our association is reorganizing to partner with those people in the value chain at a higher level. For example, the refineries, yeah, to support the activities of mining. You want the finished product, then support where it comes from. It is as simple as that. You need to work with us, support us. So instead of hustling with banks, and you have to go and put a collateral, your chibanja, or your land, or your house, or your car, for you to get small money, and yet a loan of 5 million. You see, mining is not like any other small businesses in town. You need more than a good amount of dollars to do small-scale mining. So our association is strategically located here to see that we can negotiate and on behalf of our fellow miners and get a good business environment in this country.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Chivirge. Before I move to David, kindly tell us what other minerals is this association dealing with? Are you only dealing with gold, or there are other commodities that this association really is also covering?
We are covering all minerals. We have our friends in the central region. Eastern region, apart from Mubenda and the Kasanda, most of people here are doing development minerals.
Okay.
The new bill calls them building substances. I don't know why substances. We have like Mukono here, Wakiso, Mitiana, Mpiji, these all development minerals. So we have members in our association. We have in Western Uganda, people dealing in tin, wolfram, and tungsten. So we also have friends from Katwe who are doing salt. But like I told you, we are just an association. We interest members to join our association based on what we are fighting for. And we are only 15,000 in our association, but by the time this Brazil exercise ends, we hope to be more than 200,000. The other thing, you know, that development minerals has more people than the precious metals.
Yeah, true.
But in the past, they've been talking mining relating to only precious metals. Now that development minerals will be legislated, are going to be put under the law, we shall have more than 2 million people engaged in this mining industry of ASMs. The other danger is, at the moment, like I told you, the first come, first served basis of licensing, when the law is passed, most of the people dealing in development minerals will become illegal miners because they already licenses seated where they are doing their mining activities.
Yes, yeah.
So for us, we are presenting an option to Parliament. We want to develop a coexistence strategy. Yeah? What you're doing does not affect me. Why should you call me an illegal miner? You're mining gold, I'm mining sand. So how does that affect me? So we are, even when you're mining the same mineral, but at different capacity, different volumes, sometimes you mine and you find this is not economically viable for a big company, but it's viable for a small scale what? Company. Yeah? So we need to develop a coexistence strategy. You find me here, what I'm doing does not affect you. I can actually be like, in farming, they call it, when a small farmer supplies a big factory, what do you call it? What? Outgrowing, yes. So can you introduce that in mining so that you do not chase away the people you found on the land they inherited from their grandparents. And yet they also don't affect you when you're extracting minerals that they cannot extract that are very good and economically viable for the government.
Wow, that's a very interesting challenge, I must say, to the government. And since I have David Sebagala here, who is a senior inspector of mines, and I think he's well versed with some of those things that we presented in the new bill. So I don't know, probably most of these issues have been captured, and then we wait for our legislators at Parliament to really guide us more. And yeah, just like you mentioned, you will go and meet them. I think that's the best intervention right now. If you need anything changed or anything to be updated, is to interact with the Natural Resource Committee at Parliament, I think. And those issues can be had, I am sure, because this is not yet in law. But I just like the outgrowers system to be adopted in mining. I think it will be an interesting one. So David, I know with over 15,000, just the ones that Mr. Chibig has mentioned to us, just a few of them. I know the sector must be, or the ministry is dealing with millions of these artisanals in the different parts of the country. Just like you mentioned with development minerals, I've interacted with the players in development minerals sector, and there are really so many. You go to a quarry and there are over 200 people just in one quarry. Yeah, and just think of how many quarries we have in the country. So with all the interventions that you're bringing in place, the beneficiation centers, I've looked at them and they're really progressing so well. I'm sure by mid next year we should be having running centers in Intungamo and Fort Portal. So what challenges is government or the ministry encountering as they try to bring on board the artisanals and to boost the whole artisanal sector?
Thank you, Naomi. Challenges. We're really having a lot of challenges trying to bring the artisanal and small-scale miners on board. But the major one is the gross underfunding of the sector. And I'd like to elaborate on that. If you compare the government allocation for mineral sector development with the allocation that government is putting on the energy sector and how much government is investing in the oil and gas sector, the statistics are really shocking. I don't think, and I stand to be corrected, but to the best of my knowledge, the allocation to the mineral subsector is not even a third of what government has allocated to the energy sector or even to the oil and gas sector. So that hinders your operation. And remember, this is a sector that we are dealing with a bigger number of people as compared to the oil and gas, and we are also dealing with a bigger number of people as compared to even the energy sector. So for us to be able to do what we are supposed to do to implement the interventions that I earlier mentioned, we need money. And if we don't have that money, we're not going to be able to reach these miners. I talked about inspection and monitoring of their operations. These guys, they work in small places, and if you went to only Mubende and you're to inspect the artisanal operations within just Mubende Kasanda, you need the entire allocation that I am given for the whole country for a quarter.
Wow.
So if we want to benefit from the minerals as government, we should be able to invest in that sector. Let us invest the same amount of money that we are investing in oil and gas. Yesterday, I was at foundation stone laying at one of the gold mines. We have a new gold mine, large-scale mine that has opened in Uganda, and they laid the foundation stone yesterday. I was there, and when I looked at the magnitude of the equipment that these guys have, just the drilling equipment that they had over 30 drilling rigs.
Wow.
This is a company. One company had 30 drilling rigs. The DGSM has one drilling rig, and we are supposed to cover the entire country with exploration. So I don't see us as government even being serious about this sector. If we are serious, we need to invest more money. So, and that spills down. It covers the whole sector, but it also spills down to the artisanal and small-scale miners. We are supposed to go and register them. We are supposed to sensitize them. My sensitization budget for ASMs only is equivalent to my inspection budget for the entire country for a quarter. So how do you expect me to even visit all these sites? We have tried to address the other issue, which was the challenge of understaffing within the DGSM. And in the past, we recruited some inspectors. So right now we have an adequate number of inspectors, but now you don't have the equipment to move them around. You have the people are in place, but then if they are to go to the field, you have to wait for 2 months. So all these are challenges in implementing. If we are to render services to the ASM sector, my allocations as mines department have to be increased and improved. And then the other major challenge is the mindset of the artisanal and small-scale miner, and even the perception that we have as the general public towards the artisanal and small-scale miner. We actually think this is a sector where people don't make money. But these guys make a lot of money. These guys earn more money than you people who sit in your offices. Because they will go down a gold mine and probably mine for a month and they are not getting, but when they start getting returns, a guy can go down and when he comes out of the ground, he gets his cool 20 million. He gets 100 grams of gold. Do you know the value of that? And he's a rich guy, but because of their perceptions that they are poor, they will not reinvest that money. So what happens is when a miner, they behave like fishermen. When they get money, they go on a spending spree. So how do you expect to improve and boost an economic activity of someone who doesn't want to reinvest part of the proceeds that they get from that? So we need to change their mindset, and this we are trying to do through training. And through training, we are trying to equip them with economic skills on how to manage their money when they get money. These guys who sell aggregates, these guys some of them make more money than you people who sit in offices. But because we think if you hammer those rocks for a whole day, it is labor intensive, but the returns are also high. So these guys need to change their minds and have business skills. If they look at what they are doing as a business, then they should be able to also improve it. Those are the main challenges that we face in implementation of the
boosting the artisanal sector.
Oh, yes.
Wow, that is really so awesome. I am sure the people that are responsible for the cake sharing of the national envelope have been listening in, and I know they will take this quite very serious, because yesterday we saw that in the NDP3, the mining sector is really a key sector in this. So for the sector to realize all those aspirations for the 2040 vision and beyond, then we need the resource envelope to be increased a little bit. And just to what you mentioned, I know we have so many artisanal miners across, and I have seen and worked really with UNDP to see that these artisanal miners are being supported, especially those in the development minerals. Just like Emma mentioned, that soon these will be really, when the new bill now becomes law, they will be really caught off guard. But at least I'm happy that there are initiatives, you know, from the CSO partnering with government to see that they reach out to all these miners out there, and they're being trained in different skills, and also of the upcoming things that the law is going to be put in place. So as we wind up this session, it's really very interesting. I never want to stop talking about artisanal miners, because they really are really big in the mining sector, and like David said, we've never neglected them, though. Yeah, Emma will say that they have been neglected all this long. So back to you, Emma. What recommendations would you give to government, to see that all your needs, yeah, and also what are those needs that you would want government really to take note of?
Thank you very much. The first one was that we can now sit on the table and talk to government. Because when you're termed like you're a thief, and someone you're calling a thief doesn't know what he's stealing, it is like David said, because of those interventions and sensitization that do not reach the people because of their financing constraints, people don't even know that they are doing illegal mining. But one of the things that we need government to put hands into, one is these areas, even when they're talking about zoning, they must provide geological information. The government has experts where the ASMs are, guide the people, especially those dealing in precious metals, on what they are doing. We had an exposure visit in 2019 with the government, with Minister Peter Rokeris, to Tanzania, and we found ASM sites where government had explored and provided information about what they are mining, the minerals. So as they are talking about taxes, they have also done some work to support the ASMs. That's one. Two, like when you talk about value addition, it's the gentleman who spoke. You cannot put it to the miners to add value. You create a system that adds value. Someone needs to get their gold, get their money, and go back home. So telling them, you see, if you don't add value, don't mine. It is happening in Western Uganda, where more than 10,000 perfected because they cannot sell wolfram and tin. There was a directive to that effect. So if there is no capacity by government to add value to those minerals, how are the miners going to add value? Some of these miners don't even know what the minerals they're mining are going to be used for. They know a kilo is 30,000 of wolfram. They know a kilo is 18,000. That's what they know. So you find a way of adding value for them when they provide the raw materials. And then there is, of course, the legal framework. I would like to urge the members of parliament, especially those from the minority areas, to do with the Busia, Buweju, Mubende, Kasanda, Moroto. When this bill goes into parliament, it will directly affect the welfare of the people from the areas we come from. You see, I have one mine. Where I mine, I can employ 20 people. And then at the processing center, I employ 30 people. And then from there, there are these people who are going to the middlemen who buy and they sell to Kampala. They are also like 5, yeah? So in the end, there are people who are going to supply services to us. The things that we use, the effect of the activity we do, help so many people in the value chain, which is not documented. And also the people who are making these formulas and the laws and what, they fail to ask the right questions. They look for the consultants. You go to Canada to bring a consultant to go and talk about things in Uganda. And then there is Emma in Mubende who does the same thing. Yeah? So, I mean, they have the experience, you can compare. But you cannot legislate Uganda using a Canadian law. Yeah? So, you need to look for the right people and ask the right questions for us to have this sector going forward. Like Mr. Swagala was saying about, sensitizing these people, they get a lot of money, spend it. You see, when someone tells them you are illegal, I will chase you anytime today. So how do you reinvest in a place that's not yours? You're a squatter. The licensing system tells you you're a squatter. What you take today, that's only yours. Tomorrow, I can chase her from there. We have seen it. It happened to us in Mubende. They chased us away, leaving everything there. Yeah? So people can reinvest their money. There are people who want to do this business and put in money. We are there. But when you don't have the right license to do the same, you cannot put your money. You're just getting money to invest in something that is more secure than this one. So it is good that this new bill provides for transformation of rights from, being artisanal, small scale, medium scale, and then large scale. Now, our focus, the focus of government should be how do we transform our local miners, our local investors from small scale, medium scale, then to large scale, even before attracting the multinational companies. Because you're looking at our region, we are bordering Congo, we are bordering Sudan, South Sudan. If our mineral sector, our investors here are facilitated, are encouraged, they are given incentives, they want to be the investors of Congo. We shall be getting money from Congo, money from Sudan. We shall be investing in those regions, and then we shall bring the profits back home here. So we need the support of government to support us fully. Yeah? You see, these things, you talk about NDP3. You go to and cross Mianzi. When you leave Tamaka, yes, and you cross Mianzi and ask what is NDP3 to an artisanal miner. What we need is create a system that you see, you've been mining using, this kind of system. We have a better system that can recover more gold. Yeah? If these are using, for example, this one is using hands to crush stone in stone quarries, they are small crushers where we can organize them into groups, and then they use a crusher that makes 5 tons per hour.
So, Mr. Chibirige, in the interest of time, yeah. What is that one thing that you will tell government that, as artisanals, this is, I think, the deal for us? Just in 1 minute.
Yeah, I'm telling government, I don't know who government is, but whoever thinks is government, that artisan and small-scale miners are human beings, business people, they understand. Some of them went to school. This whole picture in the newspapers that these disorganized, they are, unlucky, they didn't study, they don't bathe. It's not true. We are people who can do business, who can do partnerships, who can borrow money, who can pay back the money. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Very passionate about artisanal mining over there, Emma. David, in one statement, what would you tell us about the artisanal mining subsector?
Yep, the artisanal mining subsector is a sector that is growing in Uganda, and it is growing both in value and in numbers. It employs a significant number of people directly, and indirectly also provides a livelihood to a larger number of people in the country. If we develop them, we shall address the issue of unemployment, because the artisanal mining sector has capacity to employ like 4 times the numbers that are currently employed. So if we really, as government, if we work towards improving them and formalizing them and making sure that their activities contribute to the economic development of this country, it will help us go a long way. Do not forget that 90% of the minerals produced in Uganda are produced by the ASM subsector, the artisanal and small-scale miners. So these guys really need our help as government, and government should provide the funding that is required. If we want to reap out of the artisanal and small-scale mining sector, we need to invest in it. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, David Sebagala, the Senior Inspector of Mines at the Directorate of Geological Survey and Mines, and Emma Chividige, from the National Coordinator of the Artisanal and Small-Scale Miners Association. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us in this wonderful discussion. And to our dear viewers, I can't thank you enough for keeping with us till now. But right about now, we're going for a brief break, and then we'll be right back here with our next moderator, Agri Ashaba, that will take us in the next session. Thank you.
Dreams. They are the sparks that are meant to light the embers of success and ambition. But many of us just dream of what could be, will be, might be, or should be. But it's time we made the transition from possibility to reality and choose to be. Be the dreamer that became the achiever, the one that turned the hater into the believer and chose to be the best that they could be. So to the farmer, the trader, the corporate, the vendor, the hustler, or big spender, there's nothing that you can't be. So let's find new ways to make your dreams possible, because with Stanbic Bank, it can be. Stanbic Bank is regulated by the Bank of Uganda, and customer deposits are protected by the Deposit Protection Fund.
The Uganda Chamber of Mines and Petroleum is a not-for-profit member-based organization that was founded in March 2010. The Chamber's purpose is to be the coordinating and facilitating center for information and administrative support to prospective and current investors in the mining and petroleum sectors in Uganda. It represents companies with active interest in the mining and petroleum sectors while promoting, encouraging, protecting, and fostering responsible exploration in these sectors. Its primary goal is to create value for all stakeholders. The Chamber advocates for a beneficial business environment environment, creation of synergies and partnerships, information dissemination, and capacity enhancement for effective national content promotion. Membership in the Chamber is open to all players across the entire value chains of mining and petroleum. National content is our flagship, and at UCMP, we believe that together we can achieve more. To register, info at ucmp.ug or call +256 393 516 695.
Gold has been explored, mined and traded in Uganda, Africa and especially in our region for hundreds of years. Most of the gold is exported out of the region in raw form. In 2014, African Gold Refinery was established in Uganda. African Gold Refineries Venture is the first initiative in the region to offer the transparency. African Gold Refinery's state-of-the-art refining facilities offers the highest quality standards in line with refining, assaying, manufacturing as well as serving the mining industry in the African continent.
Build them a house that years can't touch. Build them a home that makes them feel safe and loved. Build them a house that lives up to your dreams. When you build a home, build it with multi-purpose cement from HEMA. That is reliable and trusted to build durable structures. Because homes are built to last forever.
The Uganda Chamber of Mines and Petroleum is a not-for-profit member-based organization that was founded in March 2010. The Chamber's purpose is to be the coordinating and facilitating center for information and administrative support to prospective and current investors in the mining and petroleum sectors in Uganda. It represents companies with active interest in the mining and petroleum sectors while promoting, encouraging, protecting and fostering responsible exploration in these sectors. Its primary goal is to create value for all stakeholders. The Chamber advocates for a beneficial business environment, creation of synergies and partnerships, information dissemination, and capacity enhancement for effective national content promotion. Membership in the Chamber is open to all players across the entire value chains of mining and petroleum. National content is our flagship, and at UCMP, we believe that together we can achieve more. To register, info at ucmp.ug or call +256 393 516 695.
Minute is a trusted Pan-African advisor that meets the uncertainties of tomorrow by delivering risk and human capital solutions today. Visit us for the best insurance solutions, risk management, human capital consulting, and reinsurance. Minute is the exclusive Aon correspondent with access to over 120 countries. Minute. Secure tomorrow.
Minute Limited is regulated by the Insurance Regulatory Authority of Uganda.
At NCBA, we can tailor-make your SME business solution to suit your business. It's what we have done for over 50,000 businesses so far.
50,000? Mommy, that is 50,000 families with 50,000 meals every day and 50,000 dreams coming to life.
We know that it's not about the business, but about caring for loved ones. Get NCBA SME Banking Solutions. The name is NCBA, and the numbers that matter to you matter to us. NCBA Bank. Go for it.
Build them a house that years can't touch. Build them a home that makes them feel safe and loved. Build them a house that lives up to your dreams. When you build a home, build it with multi-purpose cement from HEMA.
The Uganda Chamber of Mines and Petroleum is a not-for-profit member-based organization that was founded in March 2010. The Chamber's purpose is to be the coordinating and facilitating center for information and administrative support to prospective and current investors in the mining and petroleum sectors in Uganda. It represents companies with active interest in the mining and petroleum sectors while promoting, encouraging, protecting, and fostering responsible exploration in these sectors. Its primary goal is to create value for all stakeholders. The Chamber advocates for a beneficial business environment, creation of synergies and partnerships, information dissemination, and capacity enhancement for effective national content promotion. Membership in the Chamber is open to all players across the entire value chains of mining and petroleum. National content is our flagship, and at UCMP, we believe that together we can achieve more. To register, info@ucmp.ug or call +256 393 516 695.
Thank you very much. We have come to the closing of our two-day 10th Annual Mineral Wealth Conference. Just a quick recap of what we covered over the 2 days. One, we had the conversation on battery minerals and the rare earth elements and why they're important because of electric vehicles and because of technology and the electronics industry. We already have some companies that are exploring for this and doing a bit of work, Samta Mines and Renzori Metals. That is already happening. We've also seen the difference between exploration and an actual mine development project. We've also discussed industrialization and the linkages that the mineral sector brings to the whole economic environment. But we've also had issues around legal and regulatory framework from private sector, and we think that government should listen to private sector being the engine of growth and economic transformation, that the things that they would wish to see to enable them to invest money, government needs to listen, and we need to work in unison to make sure that this becomes the way to go. We've also had that the attraction of investment also has different players. So we've heard that we have the junior mining companies, and then we have the majors. So depending on where you are in the mineral sector development, you have to know where to pitch, whether to the junior mining companies or the majors. We've also had a conversation on the artisanal and the formalization. And we think these are good takeaways, and we believe that we've had a successful conference. Thank you very much. But for the closing remarks, allow me to invite our Chairman, Board of Trustees, Mr. Richard Kaijuka, a former banker, former Minister of Energy and Mineral Resources, also a former politician, and he's an actual practitioner in the mineral environment. Sir Richard, if you're online, please, would welcome your closing remarks. Sir Rich?
Yes, thank you very much.
The floor is yours.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you perfectly.
Good. I would like to take this opportunity in making closing remarks. In first, really appreciating all those that have been in attendance, both yesterday and today, attending our 10th annual Mineral Wealth Conference. I think we've had wonderful 6 hours of attention and listening. I really want to take this opportunity to thank all those who have been in attendance and listening and notes for joining us in this worthwhile conference. Secondly, I want to take this opportunity on behalf of Uganda Chamber of Mines and Petroleum. As you've heard, I'm the chair of the Uganda Chamber of Mines and Petroleum Board of Trustees, but I would like, on behalf of all members and on behalf of all the council, on behalf of my trustee colleagues and so on, to say we are extremely grateful that first, we were fortunate to organize this conference with partners, the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development, the Minister herself, affording a moment to open our conference, and having our new permanent secretary address the conference. We don't take this for granted, the engineer Irene Bateve, and the entire directorate for being involved in this conference. Secondly, permit me to really thank all our sponsors, because without the sponsors, we would not have had these wonderful speakers in the whole arrangement. I want to thank our secretariat for making sure that these have been coordinated. Permit me to thank the very wonderful speakers. I think those who did not attend have really missed a great opportunity to learn what is happening in our mineral sector. Because listening in, I can tell you from a perspective of at least investors and from the perspective of government, I believe if we are all interested in attracting investment in the mineral sector, we have many takeaways, as Agra Shaba has just told us. And I think people have been able to appreciate that it's a long journey. Once you get into the mineral sector, starting from exploration to the time you put up a mine is a long process that sometimes takes 5 to 7 years or 10. Even having put up a mine, when the government talks about value addition, we've seen what it takes and what it involves. Listening Cesare Morari this morning, he was saying that miners are not necessarily the best at adding value, and also depends on the nature. It's the nature, it's not the same for every mineral. Every mineral is different from another. Allow me to thank our panelists. I think they have done a wonderful job. Agra Shaba, Pamela, and Naomi this morning, you've done a wonderful job. Permit me to thank NTV. Permit me to really thank participants. I was overwhelmed listening in to people from Melbourne, like Tim Harrison, Dr. Moreno from Toronto. I had people from South Africa, people from Europe. And so for us at the chamber, we are humbled. So I'm sorry that the Honorable Minister of State has not been able to make it, but we in the chamber are extremely grateful. We hope that you will continue to support these efforts. And I hope those who are in attendance have learned something. The areas really look forward to particularly supporting those who are in exploration, because until we have a proven reserve, as we have learned, we have no mines. Let's target for this country to have at least 6 to 10 mines in the next 5 years. And it is possible if there is support. More so, the critical minerals that you've heard about. You've heard that Uganda has the potential in rare earth, in nickel, in copper, cobalt, in lithium, and many others. We can talk about it, but until we support third exploration, we are kidding ourselves. So without much ado, permit me to formally close this morning's conference on behalf of the minister and wish everybody great success as we move forward. Thank you very much for listening. God bless you.